story that has left us feeling outraged, confused, and let's be honest, kinda entertained. A forgettable moment of discomfort turns into a fully blown national crisis. Every player in this drama had a role to play, because make no mistake, this was never just a controversy. It was a full-scale media op for everybody involved.
जो statement अभद्र टिप्पणी किया है.
And you think all of this was about culture and family values?
Politicians held microphones and chairs at each other.
No, my friend, this was always about leveraging outrage for personal gain. Why does it need national outrage for people to pretend to be offended over something that they would have brushed off in seconds?
The entire society feels ashamed.
The question was uncomfortable, it was disgusting, you don't want to think about it, but did it really threaten the social fabric of our society?
15 मिनट के लिए पुलिस को हटा लो, बता देंगे किसमें हिम्मत है, कौन ताकतवर।
इस देश में ना आज तक वो 15 मिनट के लिए पुलिस हटा दो वाले अंकल सिटिंग एमएलए हैं, उसको कुछ नहीं हुआ। तो अगर तुमको लगता है इसको कुछ होने वाला है, then you're delusional.
फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच सभी को है, लेकिन हमारी फ्रीडम वहाँ समाप्त हो जाती है जब हम किसी और के फ्रीडम पर encroach करते हैं.
See, functioning in a democracy, it's not about what's needed. It's about what captures the attention of the masses. That yes, whatever he said was dumb, but we're even dumber for letting this circus escalate to this point.
Because I'll tell you why. Because I'll tell you why. You hear me, then I'll tell you why.
Maybe it is time we stopped letting others, especially the media, tell us how we should feel. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Sood It Out. And today we're talking about a controversy that has gripped India. A story that has left us feeling outraged, confused, and let's be honest, kinda entertained. Yes, I am talking about the India's Got Latent fiasco. A YouTube clip, a question, and suddenly the social fabric of our country is apparently under threat. But here's the real question, is it though? Or are we, the audience, the actual contestants in this giant game show? Let's dive into it. Let me make one thing very clear. I'm not here to point fingers at anybody. The media, the politicians, the people who got outraged, I'm not here to do that. I'm here to talk about how we as a society reacted and how it is important for us to stop letting our discomfort dictate our actions. So let's break down the sequence of events. This was recorded months ago, right? The panelists, the audience, the producers, everybody heard it in real time. Yet, nobody walked out, nobody filed FIRs, and nobody's fragile sensibilities seemed shattered. Until, of course, it hit the internet. Enter a freshly minted lawyer looking for his 15 minutes in the sun. He hears the video and he decides to file a complaint. Social media gets their hands on the clip, it goes viral, and suddenly a forgettable moment of discomfort turns into a fully blown national crisis. But why did it happen? Simple, because people love drama. We love to laugh at somebody else's discomfort. We get this satisfaction by watching other people squirm. Case in point.
मम्मी कैसी हैं?
So while the question was uncomfortable, it was controversial, it was never world ending. But by turning it into an incident, we played right into the hands of the people who wanted to make something out of nothing. Because think about it, OTT platforms not 2 weeks ago were throwing crores at the show. People were hailing Samir Raina as the king of Indian comedy. And then overnight, people who had never even heard of him suddenly became moral gatekeepers. Why? Because they saw an opportunity. Every player in this drama had a role to play, because make no mistake, this was never just a controversy. It was a full-scale media op for everybody involved. The media got its TRPs, the lawyer got some media time and a shining referral, the protesters got some camera time, even irrelevant actors made headlines through dramatic statements. You let alone irrelevant actors, even the goons who made death threats and entered the primary accused's mother's office under false pretenses to intimidate her, both of which, by the way, are much larger crimes than the question ever was. For all of them, this was just a media op. And you think all of this was about culture and family values and morality? No, my friend, this was always about leveraging outrage for personal gain, to recapture fading relevance, to have a seat at the controversy table. This was never about morality, this was all business. This was just like how the opposition every 3 or 4 years files for a no confidence motion, knowing well that there is no chance that the government would fall, but they still do it so that they can say कि भाई हमने तो सवाल पूछे थे, वो किसी को जवाब ना सुनने वो अलग बात है. The fallout of this media op, we have brands, celebrities scrambling, trying to distance themselves from the primary accused. But let's stop for a minute and look back and think, how many times have we come across uncomfortable situations in life and just push them aside? Why does it need national outrage for people to pretend to be offended over something that they would have brushed off in seconds? Maybe it's time that we ask ourselves, are we the real contestants in this giant reality TV show? And because I know that yes, the question was uncomfortable, it was disgusting, you don't want to think about it, but did it really threaten the social fabric of our society? Or did we just create a crisis where none existed? And the biggest justification that we get for this crisis is that people are impressionable. But are we? Because if people were so impressionable, well then why do shows like Delhi Crime exist? Because Delhi Crime goes into the graphic details of the modus operandi of serial killers. But we don't shut them down because we know that people know the difference between fiction and reality. And those demanding censorship, I get it. Censorship should exist for something, for content that incites harmful actions. अगर इसने बोला होता कि कल घर जाके सारे अपने माँ बाप से क्वेश्चन पूछना, तो मैं भी सबसे आगे खड़ा होता यार पेट्रोल की बोतल लेके. बट दिस वाज जस्ट डिस्कम्फर्ट, दिस वाज नेवर डिस्ट्रक्शन. और ना क्योंकि बात वही है यार कि ना ये फैब्रिक्स ऑफ सोसाइटी, कल्चर, वैल्यू, ये सारे आर्ग्यूमेंट ना तभी सामने आते हैं जब और कोई होता नहीं है किसी के पास. एंड लेट्स टॉक अबाउट दीज पेरेंट्स फाइलिंग FIRs who are very concerned about the impressionability of their children. You see, parents who are actually concerned about this sort of thing, they don't file FIRs. They sit down with their child and they tell them that in life you're going to come across content, people, information that is going to try and impact you in a negative way. But you need to decide that what is the information that you choose to retain and what information you choose to discard. Because parents who actually care about this thing, they realize that stopping one person or censoring one person is never the solution, because there are hundreds of others saying much worse things, if not in India then somewhere else, that their child could easily come in contact with. So they teach them critical thinking and not censorship. क्योंकि ना यार हमारे ना सबके बचपन में एक वो दोस्त था जिसके माँ बाप सबसे स्ट्रिक्ट होते थे ना, but 9 out of 10 times it was these children who went completely off the rails. Because the fact of life is that suppressing curiosity does not stop bad decisions, it only delays them. And taking decisions for yourself, taking decisions in a situation where you need to decide what would be the best course of action for you, these are skills that cannot be taught. These can only be learned after making stupid decisions and facing their consequences. But if you're never allowed to make decisions because they've already been made for you, and if you've always been sheltered from those consequences, तो घंटा नहीं होने वाली भाई ये स्किल डेवलप कभी. और यार there's a large chunk of people who are blaming politicians and their statements for escalating this matter. But the thing is that we need to understand it's not the politicians' fault. You see, politicians need to appear connected to the people. They need to appear like they feel the pain of all of their constituents. So if the biggest crisis in this country all over social media and on national television right now is a question by a YouTuber, of course they are bound to respond. And why? Because it's easy. There is no policy change. You just need to make a statement condemning the person and the question. अगर इतना protest किसी और policy change के लिए हो रहा होता तो they would have answered questions about that policy change. Because you see, functioning in a democracy, it's not about what's needed. It's about what captures the attention of the masses, what's trending. And unfortunately, we're the ones who made this trend. You know, I remember back in 2019, there was this huge uproar about a particular party's manifesto and the things included in it. And people, back then were arguing that there are far greater things in this country that need to be on a manifesto. And they were using the same arguments that people are using right now, that, these many are still without water, electricity, the works. And me being my naive back then, I could not really understand why it was that way. So I asked a very senior journalist and he told me it is this way because that's what gets them the votes. He said the government has made numerous strides in various directions, whether it be infrastructure or the Startup India scheme or the health initiatives. But the thing is that majority of this country's population, they don't give a shit about them. That's not what they want to hear. So the politicians don't waste their time. They only tell them about the things that they actually want to hear, the things that capture their attention. And we're noticing the same pattern right here, right now. Because the Waqf Amendment Bill, a crucial reform aimed at stopping the mismanagement of Waqf properties and preventing illegal occupation, an issue that actually matters, has got very little media attention. In fact, this is the first time most of you are actually hearing about it. Why? Because instead of questioning politicians about crucial policy decisions, they were busy chasing after them to get exclusive bites about a YouTuber's question. They were asking them what captured the attention of the masses. It's like Business Standard reporting the details of a wedding. Now I'll tell you something that is going to happen. The goons who intimidated the primary accused's mother, they're going to feel like they saved society from some sort of collapse. और जितनों को ये पहली बार पता लग रहा है ना कि उसकी मॉम के साथ ऐसा कुछ हो गया है, तुमने कभी बैठ के सोचा कि तुम्हारी फीड पे वैसे तो बाकी सारा कुछ आ गया है ना, सारे स्टेटमेंट्स, नंबर ऑफ एफआईआर, सब कुछ आ गया, ये क्यों नहीं पहुंच पाया? Where were all the outraged people when the actual damage was happening? There was so much outrage, there were so many notices, there were so many FIRs for that one question, so much action. But the only person who filed an FIR when this incident happened with his mother was the primary accused himself. Where were all the actors, all the activists, all the lawyers? Why did not they rush in and say we must protect the fabrics of our society? Where were they when the real damage was happening? Why did nobody stand up for her? And I'll tell you something else that might happen. Somebody who actually committed a crime, a real criminal, might slip away because half of the city's police force was busy chasing after a YouTuber. An innocent man's bail might get delayed because the courts were busy hearing a matter that apparently threatened the social fabric of our society. Two children will sit and wonder कि उनके डैड 2600 किलोमीटर दूर किसी को नोटिस सर्विस क्यों करने गए हैं. And the kicker, we will have nobody else to blame for this except for ourselves. Because all of the other people involved in this, they were just doing their job. The police was supposed to be chasing down a guy who had multiple FIRs registered against him. The courts were supposed to be listening to a urgent matter, and the parliamentarians were supposed to be making statements that their constituents wanted to hear. And now I'll tell you something that is not going to happen. His YouTube channel is not going to get shut down. 95% of the FIRs against him are going to get thrown out by a judge not influenced by public outcry, who will see reason in the arguments that a future CJI makes in front of him. You see, because इस देश में ना आज तक वो 15 मिनट के लिए पुलिस हटा दो वाले अंकल सिटिंग एमएलए हैं, उसको कुछ नहीं हुआ. तो अगर तुमको लगता है इसको कुछ होने वाला है, then you're delusional. As far as his subscribers are concerned, they will give him the benefit of the doubt for being too naive. And a year later, everybody will forget this even happened. The main protagonist of the show, of the YouTube show, we've already seen in his case that all publicity is good publicity. Because the day the first FIR was filed against him, he gained 80,000 subscribers and then proceeded to gain 40 and 20k respectively on the next 2 days, where the average was 10k subscribers gained before the controversy. So clearly, पूरे देश को तो घंटा ऑफेंस नहीं हुआ है. So now the question arises, offend हुआ कौन है? क्योंकि यार I talk to everybody from all kinds of, different backgrounds, different genders, different age groups, different social economic backgrounds. And I noticed two things amongst their responses. Number one, the intensity about their involvement in this case was very varied. The second thing that was common was nobody knew how it had scaled to that height. Nobody was interested in the repercussions he was going to face, and everybody in their own words said that yes, whatever he said was dumb, but we're even dumber for letting this circus escalate to this point. Or yeah, I keep hearing all throughout social media, everybody saying that is this really the most pressing matter in this country right now? Is it really worth the national outcry? तो भाई अगर कोई offended है ही नहीं, तो फिर outraged है कौन? Let's try to figure it out. Let's use some algebra, right? कहीं तो काम आए. Let's assume the question being asked to be X and Y to be the social fabric of our society on the verge of collapse, right? So in the real world, X happened, right? The question was asked, the episode got aired, somebody watched it, got offended, filed a complaint, the media got a hold of it, and now everybody with a phone knows exactly what was said, leading to the social fabric of our society being on the verge of collapse. Here X is equal to Y. Now consider an alternate reality where X happens, the question is asked, the episode gets aired, Somebody sees it, gets offended, but decides to shut down his phone and never see it again. The complaint never gets filed, the media never gets hold of it, and you and I never find out what was said. The impression never gets made, and suddenly the social fabric of our society is not on the verge of collapse anymore. Here X does not equal Y. But what changed? Did X change? Did the question change? Did Y change? No. Somebody being offended, somebody using it as an opportunity changed. So maybe it's time that we as a society stopped being so easily outraged by what others have to say. Maybe it's time we stopped letting others dictate what should or should not create a lasting impact on us. Maybe it is time we stopped letting others, especially the media, tell us how we should feel. Because it's always the people who says that others are impressionable who are the most susceptible to propaganda, to being influenced and to reacting before thinking. It's always the guilty party who jumps up first and says, I did not do it. But hey, at the end of the day, we will all achieve what we apparently wanted. The primary accused, he will pay. Just not in the way that you think. His legal bills will pile up. He will spend a shit ton of money on PR, security, damage control. He will lose subscribers, viewers, impressions. No influential guest will touch his show for a while until we find the next scapegoat. So more of the ghost stories, yay. And he will pay. Mentally, career-wise, financially, he is going to learn his lesson. So congratulations guys, we did it. We made him pay for making us uncomfortable for 2 seconds. But before you go to sleep tonight, ask yourself this question. Was this a victory that you really wanted to be a part of? Or were you coerced into believing that this was paramount to keep the integrity of the social fabric of this country intact? With that, I leave you to reflect on it. So take a deep breath, sit with it, think about it, and keep moving forward. And of course, keep listening to Sood It Out. I'll see you in the next one.